If you ain't redlining, you ain't headlining. Have you ever received a mix which looks like this? Motherless fucking chamois. If you're gonna get them to do videos like this, at least get them to smash the like button and subscribe. You know what to do. A big, fat, smash the like button. Fucking just no dynamics, nothing. And as a mastering engineer, that just fucks with me, man. But the reality is you're going to get in situations like this. People are going to lose the session. The mixing engineer is going to just deliver it like this, and that's the way they work. And sometimes it's just a time crunch, and what you get is what you have to work with, no exceptions. Well, I've been in that situation multiple times, and maybe you might have as well. So how do you bring dynamics back to this? Well, there's a technique called COMPANSION. The idea of using a compressor followed by an expander to bring some or be able to control some of the dynamic impact of the track. And the reason why I do it with an upward inflection there is because it's a bit touch and dicey. It can work, it can sometimes not work, it's easy to overdo and overcook, and it manages. Today I'm going to show you how I've developed this technique, because the thing is, I first read this in Bob Katz's Mastering Audio. He only has a paragraph on the topic in his book, unless I've missed it somewhere else. And I've had to sort of figure this out on my own over the years to sort of equate what sort of settings, what sort of interaction works best between a compressor and an expander in these certain circumstances. Today, I've got a project here which you can listen to, and I can show you how I take something that looks like this and turn it to something that looks like this. And now I'm going to show you the sound comparison of before and after. Then we'll go through how I've set it up. Beautiful. Hear that? It's got a little bit more smack, a little bit more punch and movement to the dynamics of it. What's going on under the hood? Some people might say, well, why use a compressor then an expander? Aren't you just compressing the signal more? Can't you just use an expander or a transient designer? Well, here's what I say to you. How are you meant to? If everything is a square, okay, let's pull this up. There we are. If everything is a square like this, what transient is a transient designer gonna design, or an expander gonna expand? It's all square. It'll just be triggered by everything, or by nothing, because you just don't set the threshold, so you don't make it sound like shit. The beauty of a compressor, first, is that with the slow attack time, and I'll show you this in Plugin Doctor, let me bypass this. I've got a big square, I add in a compressor, and I can duck the body and control how much transient pokes out at the start in order for me to feed the expander. Okay? So this is just doing tone bursts here, and you can see how that compressor works against a flat tone burst. And basically, by changing the attack, if I make the attack quicker or the attack much slower, or even the ratio less or more, I can control how much of this signal feeds into the expander, which gives me room in the expander to actually set a threshold which is reasonable for the record. So it's just not hitting everything, it's just taking these little transients. Beautiful. So let's have a look, have a listen, and sort of understand what I'm doing here. So let's have this on loop, and I'm going to show you first the compression settings I'm using. Let me play it without, and then with the compressor, then I'll show you what settings I've chosen and why. It does sound a little bit more squashed up, especially the tails of everything, but the main sort of thing that I'm focusing on is not using a super high ratio, just using something just enough to bring out the transient information, just a little bit of a movement there, and making a really slow attack. 70 milliseconds, sometimes even slower, 100, 125 is perfect for this. And what you're going to do is now I'm going to get you to listen to the effect of the compressor as I change the ratio and the attack. Two things. Faster attack, you end up losing a little bit of the transient because it's just crushing it too quickly. And too much ratio, it's just starts flatlining it again. So 1 to 5, 70 milliseconds, a bit more. That's about where I'm rolling at. That is going to basically feed. That's going to feed what's going on in my expander. So now with the expander, this is a bit of an iffy one because with the expander, I'm using a multi-band one. Some people might just use a full band expander. The reason why I like this is I don't like to necessarily expand the low end. Sub-frequencies get a bit funny to my ears when you're doing too much dynamic movement on it. The compression pumping down, I don't mind, but trying to expand that low end below 160 hertz up, I don't know. That to my ear doesn't really sound that great. Doesn't make it sound punchier. It can just even lose a little bit of focus if you're doing that. So, what's this expander doing? Well, it's got a relatively fast attack, and it's got a very, very low ratio. I'm only giving an extra 1 decibel boost to each of those transients that the compressor is feeding into this expander. So that's just the magic. So what I'm going to do is, you've already heard it with the compressor, so I'm going to play it now with the expander off and then with the expander on. You hear that? A huge amount more body. The transients are coming out. You're compensating for a bit of that ducking from the compressor. That's compansion. And it's really cool to understand how a compressor and an expander can work in tandem with one another, because it's almost like an additional control value going into the expander, being able to control the amount of transient information feeding it, so that way you can have a more responsive interaction between the compressor and the expander. So that's how I turned this really squashed mix coming in to something more punchy. Beautiful. If you guys enjoyed this, press the like button, subscribe to the channel. I'm going to be back with more, alright guys? Take care.